Hello, hello, Jordan Chariton live Sunday. Breaking news. Biggest breaking news I've covered quite some time. President Biden has dropped out, ended his 2024 reelection campaign after 3 weeks of nonstop pressure that escalated this week. With congressmen, senators, and backroom dealing that was going on to pressure him out. I thought this was going to happen, but I thought it would take some more time. But President Biden just issued a statement announcing he is standing down. And this leaves a lot of questions open as to what happens next. Smash that like button, share this live stream. This just happened. He just issued this statement about 15 minutes ago. So it is absolutely brand new, breaking live. And we will get you reactions, give you my analysis. I will read you the statement, and then we'll go from there. Smash the like button, share this live stream. Historic breaking news. President Biden has dropped out. And yes, this is when the real circus begins. Colin, if you could pump up the statement. It's Biden's tweet. If you don't have it, I will drop it in the chat here. Hold on. There we go. My fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. Yes, one that is a gilded age of haves and have-nots. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation and lowering prescription drug costs for seniors and in expanding affordable health care to a record number of Americans. I'm just going to read it. I'll separate fact versus fiction later. We've provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances. Passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate legislation in the history of the world. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Yes, you prematurely ended that pandemic, even though COVID is still running rampant and long COVID is a significant problem. I digress. We've protected and preserved our democracy, and we've revitalized and strengthened our alliances around the world. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve you as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I'll speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision. For now, let me express my deepest gratitude to all those who have worked so hard to see me reelected. Want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary partner in all of this work. And let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the American people for the faith and trust you have placed in me. I believe today what I have always have, that there is nothing America can't do. When we do it together, we just have to remember we are the United States of America. Oh boy, where to begin? First off, smash the like button, share this live stream. Obviously, breaking news. He does not formally endorse Vice President Kamala Harris to replace him or to be the Democratic nominee. That will probably come in time. It looks like there's going to be an open convention. I want to get to that later, what happens next, and first get to his resignation and also the massive, massive cover-up that went on here. And this is breaking news, so I don't have any articles to show you or anything like this. I'm just going to speak to you based on what I know. We'll get to what happens next, but we need to really dig into the massive, massive cover-up that the Democratic Party and the media were part of for the last, I'd say, 3 years, possibly longer. Because for those of you that watched Status Coup in 2020, this was not something that just developed within the last year of Biden not being able to speak coherently. This was not something that just happened recently where Biden, had a quote stutter, air quotes. It was very clear when he was running in 2019 and 2020 that Biden was not all cognitively there. Not a stutter. He had a lifelong stutter, but he spoke fine when he was a senator, spoke fine when he was vice president, debated fine in 2008. He was in cognitive decline. However, the Democratic Party was so hell-bent, not on defeating then President Trump, but stopping Bernie Sanders from winning the 2020 Democratic nomination, that they all consolidated around Joe Biden. And Colin, I don't know if you have the clips. If we do, we could show them. Him, forgetting who Obama was in 2020 during events, forgetting Obama's name, calling himself an Biden-Bama Democrat. Here we go.
I'm Jill Biden's husband. Thanks to all the members of Congress and Homeland Security Secretary. I'm not sure I'm going to introduce you all the way.
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure. Donald Trump thinks health care is a privilege. Barack and I think it's a right for people to have bad health care.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death.
I have not made that formal decision, but it's my intention. My intention to run again. And we have time to make that decision.
Dr. Biden is for it. Mr. President. Oh.
Dr. Biden thinks that, my wife thinks that we're doing something very important. Because they invaded another country and annexed a significant portion of it called Crimea. Right. He's saying that it was my boss, it was his fault.
You want to nominate a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, a proud Democrat, an Biden-Obama Democrat. Cannot get reelected. We cannot win this reelection. We can only reelect Donald Trump.
The conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip. Initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate.
Bill Clinton to the presidency, and you're the ones that sent Barack Obama to the presidency. And I have a simple proposition here. I'm here to ask you for your help. Where I come from, you don't get far unless you ask. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. Look me over. If you like what you see, help out. If not, vote for the other guy. Give me a look, though, okay?
And I want to thank all of you here, for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. And what happened was, Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Well, poor Mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to.
He now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did Well, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies legally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look,
we significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there. Number one.
Give it up for Colin. He put together that animated voyage of the Biden Titanic. And as we've said at the end, and for those coming late, you're asking what my source is. President Biden, about 20 minutes ago, issued a statement announcing he is standing down and dropping out. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll just read this part again. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interests of my party and country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I'll speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision. He does not formally endorse Vice President Harris, so that's of note. He praises her, but he doesn't endorse her to be the Democratic nominee. We should also say, and this is going to happen pretty much immediately, be prepared for the Republican Party to immediately start hyperventilating for the 25th Amendment and demanding that Biden have to resign, stating if he can't run again and if he can't serve another 4 years, that he can't effectively finish out the term now. So that's going to happen. It might already be happening while I'm live, Republicans tweeting. To be clear, and there's a lot of layers of this, there's a lot of angles to get to, so I'm going to go in steps. To be clear, Donald Trump did not want this. The Republicans wanted Biden to stay in for obvious reasons. And I can't say for certain, but I have to imagine, Colin, if you have the Detroit Free Press article I sent with the recent poll, I have to imagine that Biden's decision and announcement to do this today could be linked, of all the polls, to me, this was the worst, to this Michigan poll that came out today, where Donald Trump's lead increased from 3 points to 7. Let me repeat, 7 points, where Donald Trump is winning in all areas of the state, including Detroit. If you know anything about Michigan, a Democrat has to clean up, particularly with black voters in Detroit and Flint. And Donald Trump's lead in Detroit, and Detroit Free Press is a pretty good poll, increased to 7. I'll read this to you. An exclusive new Free Press poll of likely Michigan voters shows former President Trump has taken a notable 7-point lead over incumbent President Joe Biden in the state, a result certain to further worry Democrats. It's only going to add to the pressure on Biden to step aside and have someone replace him, said Bernie Porn. What a name. The pollster for Epic MRI in Lansing, which conducted the survey of 600 voters for the Free Press. The poll showed Trump, who held a rally in Grand Rapids on Saturday evening, leading Biden 49 to 42% in a head-to-head matchup, with 9% undecided, saying they would vote for neither or refusing to answer In a five-way race with third-party candidates, Trump led with 43 to 36% to Biden, 8% for independent RFK Jr., and 2% each for Green Party candidate Jill Stein and Cornel West. Again, 9% said they would either not vote for president, pick someone else, or else were undecided. To me, this was the final death nail in his political coffin. Trump led in every region of the state, including in Metro Detroit, defined as Macomb County, Oakland County, and Wayne counties, and seen as the most predominantly Democratic region in Michigan, where he held a slim but remarkable 46-44 lead. If you're losing in Detroit as a Democrat, you're going to lose Michigan minimum by 5 to 6 points. And why that's important, Biden in his delusional interviews and press conference said, show me one poll that shows I can't win. Well, most experts, if you look at the Electoral College map, Trump has, sadly, many different paths to winning re-election. Biden has only one real path. That is to win again those three states. They call it the blue wall of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. He can't really win 2 out of 3 and still win because he's, as of now, losing big in Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and several other states. So he has to win all 3. Well, if you're losing Michigan, and other polls show he was losing Michigan by 3, 4, 5 points. If you're losing in these counties, you're going to get crushed. Not to mention, Biden has been funding with a blank check a genocide well before the debate debacle. We're talking for 9 months. He's been funding Israel's nonstop genocide. So Biden has already lost young voters in Michigan, Arab American voters. At this point, there's no chance for him to win Michigan. And if he can't win Michigan, he can't win re-election. Obviously, Michigan's not the only important state, but it's key. And I could tell you, having covered Flint for so long, hint, hint, my first book, We the Poisoned, will be out in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Quick segue. So August 6th, my book, We the Poisoned, Exposing the Flint Water Cover-Up, will be out in bookstores. You can still pre-order now. Viewers who have pre-ordered are already starting to get their copies and have been sending me great reviews. Not to go too off topic, but my book will reveal, I do not dramatize, I do not overemphasize, the biggest government cover-up of the 24th century. I believe that the cover-up I expose in my book literally makes Watergate look like child's play. Lauren got her copy yesterday. Look, I'm looking forward to your review. But now that Biden has dropped out, and we'll get to his presidency that he, in his letter, his statement says was historic and so great. It wasn't historic. It wasn't so great. I will say, I think if you forget if you're a progressive or vote blue no matter who, forget if you are a never Trumper, whatever your label is, this is a good thing if you actually truly believe democracy is at stake. Because to me, it was always laughable. First of all, it's laughable that we even have a democracy. If you're new here, you know I call it the United Corporations of America. The flag's behind me. You can't say we have a democracy when the person with the most votes doesn't always win. The Electoral College is undemocratic. You can't say we have a democracy, which, as Princeton showed in a 2014 study, over 50% of the time, the majority will, what people want, the majority will position, the policies voters want, is never enacted. But over 50% of the time, the policy that is enacted is that of donors and rich people. Only 5% of the time, the policies that have majority support among the majority are enacted. You cannot say that's a democracy when the majority will does not pass. You cannot say it's a democracy when we have a purchased government that has been bought off by corporations, big banks, Wall Street, big pharma, big oil, and the rest. You cannot say this is a democracy. We have democratic elements. There are democratic elements, but this whole, our holy democracy is at stake was always nonsense. But it was especially nonsense if Biden is the one running on democracy is at stake, but he refused to drop out when Clearly, he had no chance of winning, but much more importantly, he could not finish sentences. He could not articulate a point. Donald Trump, contrary to the polls, is a horrible candidate. He's a vulnerable candidate. He can be beaten. He just picked as his vice presidential nominee a candidate who is on record saying he's for a national abortion ban. Let me repeat, J.D. Vance is on the record saying he's for a national abortion ban. And Trump brags that he's the reason Roe v. Wade was overturned. So if you could have gotten a Democratic candidate that could at least construct full sentences, speak well, it doesn't need to be an inspiring, preferably it would be an inspiring candidate, but at least get through speeches, get through interviews, not look like, not sound and look like expired milk. You at least have a shot to defeat Trump because Trump is vulnerable. Trump is not running on policy. Trump is not running on any specifics other than Biden's bad, they're all corrupt. I'm going to finish the job and build the wall. And Trump's popularity and Trump's approval rating is still at horrible lows. So if you got a half decent Democratic candidate, none of them will be my cup of tea because they're all corporate Democrats. They're all purchased and bought off in their own ways, from Kamala Harris to Gretchen Whitmer to Gavin Newsom to Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. They're all status quo corporate Democrats. They're purchased by donors. They're not for Medicare for all. They're not for free college tuition. They're not going to take the aggressive, real action that we desperately need on the climate inferno. But can any one of them defeat Trump? I believe each one of them have a better chance of defeating Trump. And Kamala Harris, who is not my cup of tea, and I think is a neoliberal hack, I think she verbally can prosecute a case against Trump. I do think it will end up being Kamala Harris because the Democratic Party created this identity politics machine. Can you imagine if the Democratic Party tried to screw Kamala Harris at what will likely be an open convention in August? Can you imagine if they try to take this from the first potential woman president and the first Black woman president? Oh my God, the identity politics monster that they created would turn on the Democratic establishment. And the most dependable and consistent voter in the Democratic Party is Black women. I'm a white guy. I'm not going to speak for Black women, but I've done enough interviews and I've covered enough campaigns. Black women and Black people have been very loyal to the Democratic Party. I believe they shouldn't have been because the Democratic Party hasn't done what they promised Black people for the last 50 to 100 years. But I'm not so sure that loyalty is going to hold if they bypass Kamala Harris. Oh, is this a new one? All right. So Joe Biden.
Yeah, and then I have a clip after this too, if you want to react to it.
When did Biden tweet this? Within the last few minutes?
About 10 minutes ago.
All right. So he has endorsed Kamala Harris. So we have the endorsement. My fellow Democrats, I've decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of the term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala Harris to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this. So there you have it. There will be an open convention, possibly by name, but it's going to be Kamala Harris because, mark my words, Joe Biden, who was the only group that was still wanting him to stay in, wrongly so in my opinion, was Black voters. A small majority of Black voters in polling didn't want him to drop out. But now that Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris, lights out. I don't even think, frankly, there might be a few that possibly run against her at an open convention. But for the most part, I do not think Gavin Newsom is going to run against her. I do not think Gretchen Whitmer is going to run against her. I do not think Josh Shapiro is going to run against her. I do not think J.B. Pritzker is going to run against her because they're all thinking about 4 or 8 years from now. And it would be optically a very poor choice to try and stop the first female president, much less the first black female president. For you progressives saying, could Bernie, third time's a charm? I don't think Bernie's going to do it either, frankly. I think Bernie would probably step aside. I think it's too late. He would view it as too late in the game. And I think he also would not want to give off the appearance of trying to block the first first woman president, much less black female president. I'll give you my thoughts on that, but let's play the clip Colin has.
Oh, 1 second. I'm trying to remember how to turn off ad blocker because
that's all right. Whenever you figure it out,
yeah,
let me know. So there's a lot to say. We might have an open convention, but my strong guess is even before the convention, all the possible challengers are going to fall in line around Kamala Harris. Listen, I'm not going to bullshit you. And again, this is breaking news. I don't have anything lined up. I've covered Kamala Harris in the past. We will have more this week to reintroduce you to Kamala Harris. I'm not going to be a simp for the Democratic Party or Kamala Harris. I think there's a lot of concerns when it comes to Kamala Harris as a politician, as a person.
News here. President Biden has announced he will stand down from the race. I'm going to read the statement here on my phone. Really needed care to 1 million people noted and announcing he is stepping back from the race. There was very little indication from people close to him and many people in the campaign that this was what was about to happen, as much as there were reports of Democrats calling on him to do that. What's interesting in this, I will note, and then we're going to bring Tim Miller in, is that he does not endorse the vice president in this statement. We'll see what he says later this week. And I know there's going to be a lot of reactions from people coming in as this statement.
So he did endorse Harris a tweet or two later. And Colin, if you find other videos, tweets that you think are good to show, just pipe them in and let me know. So there's so many elements here. But first, and we have on YouTube, we have 2,200 people watching. So smash that like button. And if you're new here, please subscribe. We're almost at 200,000 subscribers. So let's get there, preferably by the end of July, if we can. And we will be on the ground at the DNC. So it's going to be spicy, and we will be on there. And I still expect there to be mass protests over the continued U.S.-funded genocide in Gaza, whether it's Kamala Harris or someone else. But I first want to go through, to me, we could get to Biden, Harris versus Trump or whomever it's going to be. But we first need to establish that we have all been lied to and gaslit for the last 4 years by Joe Biden, by the Democratic Party, by the media. And we should not just gloss over that and allow that to be, normalized. It was clear in 2019 and 2020 that Joe Biden was not cognitively equipped and cognitively well to run for president or to serve as president. Now, can you say he's done some decent things as president? Sure. He's not my cup of tea. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you that he was some historic president, even though that's the propaganda you're going to get from MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post. He ran on a $15 minimum wage, immediately abandoned that promise, blaming the parliamentarian, which was bullshit. He ran on a public option for healthcare, doesn't go far enough, but is better than the for-profit corrupt system we have now, abandoned that right away. He ran on ending drilling on public lands. He's doubled drilling on public lands. We have a climate inferno, nonstop heat waves all across America. It's getting so bad that oceans are at record temperatures, severe drought, and he would not demand or declare a climate emergency. And During climate crises, he did a press conference announcing cooling centers for seniors. And he would not, this is the guy who could get things done, he refused to fight Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema and make them the villains and use the bully pulpit of the presidency to shame them for blocking the extension of a child tax credit, which was one of the few good things he did. He allowed them to hijack that. He allowed them to water down his Build Back Better plan to the point where the historic gains in the Build Back Better plan were tax credits for renewables. Tax credits for renewables would have been good 15 years ago. Right now, tax credits for renewables is the equivalent of a burning house, a raging house fire, and the fire department coming with super soakers. It is too little, too late. Tax credits for renewables. And the infrastructure deal, despite the propaganda from Biden and the media, the infrastructure deal is a privatization scheme on steroids. But I want to establish he was forgetting names and who people were in 2019 and 2020. He was forgetting where he was some of the time. In debates, he was cutting himself off because he couldn't continue his train of thought in debates in 2020 saying, well, anyway, don't get me started. It only got worse as president. But there were signs in 2020 that he was not cognitively well. But the media lied to you and gaslit you saying gaffes. I was on the campaign trail in 2020, just like I was in 2016. I remember instances. I remember an instance in Iowa where I was at the hotel bar and I saw corporate mainstream media reporters at the bar. This was like midnight, maybe. Literally, and I was there too, and I was eavesdropping. And they were literally laughing and giggling and debating amongst themselves whether he had dementia or early Alzheimer's. This was mainstream news reporters. I'm not making it up. Reporters that were pretending now that they were stunned when they saw Biden cognitively malfunction during the debate. 4 years ago, they were at the hotel bars joking around. Does he have early dementia or Alzheimer's? Move forward to the presidency. He did less interviews and less press conferences than any president in modern history. And a major red flag, he declined to do the Super Bowl interview, which would have given him over 100 million eyeballs. Democrats, Republicans, independents, people who don't care about politics. You don't decline to give a Super Bowl interview unless your staff and loved ones know it's a bigger risk to do it than not to do it. So it was very clear that he was not well, and the media talked about it privately, but did not report it to you, the people. And it wasn't just the media. We're finding out stories now. Congressman Seth Moulton came out in the New York Times, I believe, saying on the anniversary of D-Day event in Normandy, Biden didn't remember his name. George Clooney, the big Democratic Party donor and celebrity, he did an op-ed calling for Biden to drop out because at a fundraiser that Clooney put on in the Hollywood Hills, Clooney said Biden was a shell of himself. They didn't say anything until after his horrible debate performance. Clooney and apparently Congressman Moulton and the many others that have come out saying, yeah, we've had interactions with him where he didn't recognize us. There was a video that just came out a couple days ago where Biden looks like he's about to kiss a blonde woman thinking it's his wife. And Jill Biden rushes over and pulls him away. Now, I'm not trying to shame anyone for growing old. Here we go. Play it from the beginning. Colin, play it from the beginning. This is not something that just happens or a bad night. This is something that a lot of people know in politics, in the Democratic Party, think tanks, donors, media, and they keep quiet because they want to keep the neoliberal status quo humming. That's what this was. And I'm not shaming him. People grow old. I hope I turn 81 and don't have cognitive problems. Not all old people. I mean, Bernie Sanders is older and is speaking quite well, articulating, travels, and is fine for now. But there's no shame in growing old. There's no shame in, your memory faulting. There's no shame if you're unfortunate enough to develop an Alzheimer or dementia or anything like that, Parkinson's. But there is shame if, because of your craven, brazen thirst and hunger to keep power, you are willing to risk democracy so you could stay in power. And I believe the final nail in the coffin, I think he decided to drop out, seeing that Michigan poll that I showed earlier. If he's down 7 points in Michigan, if he's losing Wayne and Macomb County, which is Detroit, he's going to lose in a landslide. Not just him, but he's going to bring down the Democratic Party in the House and Senate candidates. But the underlying story of this, we need more investigation. We need more reporting, which I doubt is going to come from the media, on who knew what when. Because it's not just about Biden. We cannot let the media get away with normalizing, hiding, and covering up that a president is unwell. Because if we let them get away with this cover-up, and this was a cover-up, it was clear to anyone with eyes and ears who was objectively watching for the last 4 years. If they get away with it here, what makes you think if Trump is reelected and that everything they're saying about him, I believe, is true? I know we have some conservative MAGA people watching. Sorry to tell you, you've been hoodwinked into supporting this con man. He is a con man. He's not going to do anything for you. He's not going to close the border. He's not going to build the wall. He's going to give you crumbs in tax cuts while giving his donors and rich people cake and champagne. So I'm not here to, wink, wink to MAGA. If you're looking for, validation for being MAGA, it's not going to come here. And by the way, border crossings are down, contrary to the propaganda you're fed. But if we allow them to get away with clearly how they hid this and Biden's true state, what makes you think that they're going to tell us if Trump is cognitively falling apart, or that they're going to start blaring the sirens and sounding alarms if Trump is falling apart cognitively or physically? I don't think they will, because the media, I think, secretly wants Trump to get reelected to resuscitate their dying ratings, particularly CNN. The Washington Post, whose digital subscribers have been cut in half since Trump left office. They want Trump again for that sugar high that he provided in the first term. Spare me on the democracy talk. They want clicks. They want subscribers. They want profit. And trust me, it would have been a lot smarter for Status Coup as a business model to just do Trump, 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 Trump for the last 9 or 10 years. I chose not to. I chose to stay on Flint, which is the biggest cover-up of the 21st century. We choose to stay on East Palestine, which was chemically nuked. East Palestine, Ohio, which was chemically nuked by Norfolk Southern, and the EPA and the Biden administration, also J.D. Vance, have been covering the whole thing up and pretending everybody's fine there. Go watch my video and interview with an East Palestine resident, how J.D. Vance has abandoned East Palestine. So has Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown and the rest of the politicians in Ohio. They're all sick in East Palestine and Western Pennsylvania because they were chemically nuked. But our media doesn't cover that. Our media just moves off of those things. Our media just moves off of mass shootings. Our media pretends Flint water is safe and clean, even though 10 years later it's not. But moving forward away from the media part of this, and Colin, I think I'm going to take calls too. So if you want to call in, get ready to call in soon. But moving on from the media part of this, let's get to what happens next. Biden has endorsed Vice President Harris. I think based on the Democratic Party's identity politics machine that it has created, I find it very, 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 very unlikely that any major Democrat will run at the convention against Kamala Harris. I don't think Gretchen Whitmer will, and she's got some skeletons in her closet that I've reported and exposed. Gretchen Whitmer abandoned her promises to Flint. Gretchen Whitmer helped a toxic paper mill expand that is poisoning a poor black community. So if she ran, forget it. I would eviscerate her just based on the facts. I don't think she's running. I don't think Gavin Newsom is going to run. They are not going to run against the potential first woman president who has been endorsed by Biden. They're not going to run against the first potential black female president who has been endorsed by Biden, which brings us to Harris versus Trump. I think as important as, obviously, we need to look at Harris versus Trump, I think just getting Biden out there, I think Harris is automatically, it's going to be a bump of at least 2 to 3 points in a lot of these swing states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Not based on Harris or people liking Harris, but the people that were moving to Trump weren't necessarily Trump lovers, but could not bring themselves to vote for Biden again based on everything we've been talking about. The guy can't finish the sentence and he's not cognitively there. I think you're going to see a swing of at least 2 to 3 points in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Let's not forget, in Wisconsin, Milwaukee is a major city for Democrats for voting. In Michigan, Detroit, Flint is a major city for Democrats in terms of black people voting. Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 in large part because less black voters came out for her in Detroit, in Milwaukee, and in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania. Also, less young people came out for her. I'm not saying that, immediately because she's black, the black vote is going to come out, 100% for her. Black voters don't just vote because you're black. With that said, let's be clear. There will be a significant portion of black voters that swing back to Harris because of the history, potential first female president, and the fact that she's black, particularly older black women, which are the most loyal Democratic voter in the Democratic Party for years. And I believe black men. Trump has been pulling some of those black men. I think Latino voters who have been moving over to Trump, I think there will be a good portion of Latino voters that consider voting for Harris, not because they love her, but because they were moving to Trump because they didn't want to vote for Biden. Now, Harris has the stink of Biden on when it comes to the genocide in Gaza that Biden has been funding with an open check, a blank check. There have been reports that that Harris is to the left of Biden on Gaza, that Harris was sounding alarms. I don't know if it was based on morality that she disagreed with funding Israel, but there have been reports that she was sounding the alarm that this is hurting us politically, this open-ended, nonstop support for Israel and what Israel was doing in Gaza. I am not saying that Kamala Harris can get back all of those young voters that fled Biden, young voters that fled Biden in Michigan and elsewhere. And I'm not saying Kamala Harris could get back all those Arab American voters that fled Biden. But with that said, obviously the microscope is going to be on her. Obviously, she's going to have to give speeches. Obviously, she's going to have to barnstorm the country and speak on everything from inflation to Israel-Gaza to the climate inferno to student loans to everything. She is going to have to reintroduce herself in a very short period of time. I do believe, not that I would trust that she's going to be any less of a warmonger than Biden, but I do not think that Kamala Harris's mind is stuck in 1970 or 1980. I do not believe Kamala Harris is such a Zionist as Biden is. But I do think Kamala Harris is just as much of a servant to the donors. That has been her MO throughout history. I reported it in 2020, and I reported on her fundraisers that she was doing on Fifth Avenue in, penthouse suites. She's going to kiss as much donor ass that Biden would. And frankly, I'm a Jew, and I feel I could say this. A lot of the biggest Democratic Party donors happen to be Jewish and happen to be hardcore Zionists. So I don't know if Kamala Harris could pull back some of those young voters. I don't know if Kamala Harris could pull back some of those Arab American voters. But I think Kamala Harris, just by default of not being Joe Biden, will increase polls by at least 2 points, possibly 3. I think the real important thing when it comes to Kamala Harris is who she picks as her vice president. Because right now, the reason that Biden has been hemorrhaging votes is A, he can't speak. B, he's really old. And you couple that with inflation and other things. But it's not so much because people were gravitating to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's approval rating is still 40%. It ain't high. Donald Trump is still number 2 most unpopular politician and very polarizing. Independent voters are still not in love with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, to be clear, just picked a vice presidential nominee who is on record of being for a national abortion ban, which I got to say, I think someone with a vagina will make a better case than Joe Biden, who can't speak, would have made. So I think Kamala Harris is not my cup of tea politically. I'm not endorsing anybody. It's not for me to tell you who to vote for. You vote for whoever you want. But on the merits, she'll be a better candidate. But for those independent voters, for young voters, and for voters in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which I believe this election is going to come down to, who she picks as vice president is very important, because I believe independent voters, I believe young voters, I believe Black voters, I believe Latino voters are not going to be just looking at Kamala Harris. They're going to be looking at what is the package. What is the package deal here? Is it Kamala Harris and, I don't know, Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona, who's been rumored and Democrats' polls show is very popular? Could it be Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro? I don't know if they do that because it might be a little too much for the racist people in America who don't think of themselves as racist, but subconsciously are, to go with a Black woman and a Jew. I don't know if the American populace can stomach that. But I believe Kamala Harris could pick one of the governors from the Midwest, Josh Shapiro, J.B. Pritzker. I don't think she's going to pick Gretchen Whitmer because I don't think she wants to pick somebody who would be more popular than her. And I think she's going to probably pick someone who Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and the Democratic leaders, Schumer, and the donors want as her vice president. I'm not going to predict it. It could be Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who, as a Democrat, has gotten reelected in conservative Kentucky. It could be a wild card we're not thinking of. But I think it's going to be very important who she picks as vice president, because this election is going to come down to, I believe, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, possibly North Carolina, now that Biden's off the ticket. And I think people are going to be looking not just at Kamala Harris, but at who she picks as her vice president. Listen, this is unprecedented breaking news. This is, other than Lyndon B. Johnson, this is the first president to announce after winning the nomination. Oh, well, he didn't formally win the nomination, but this is the first president in modern history that has dropped out. It has major implications. I do think Donald Trump is a real threat. If you noticed at his RNC, the media was reporting it. Oh, this is so united and such a great convention. To me, it looked like a Ku Klux Klan rally. I didn't see a Black person there. I didn't see a Hispanic person there. So a lot of old white people holding mass deportation now signs. If you are for that, we disagree. If you are for that, we disagree. Donald Trump is talking about lowering the corporate tax rate from 21 to 15%. I don't know. There's no historical data that shows that helps working people, that Donald Trump claims he's for. Lowering the corporate tax rate is just another stock buyback for massive corporations. He says he's going to lower taxes for everyone. Well, his major tax cut during his presidency was a massive tax cut for wealthy people, 84%. Towards wealthy people. He wants to deregulate further. Well, we have a climate inferno happening right now. More deregulation is going to expedite the end of planet Earth. And if you're a person in this chat saying, oh, you climate stooges, well, when the wildfires are around your house or your house is underwater, maybe you'll get it. Let's take calls. I don't need to keep talking. Let's take calls on this historic announcement. It's whatever you think, whether you support Trump, whether you support Biden, whether you support Harris, this is historic. And to be clear, Nancy Pelosi drove this bus. Nancy Pelosi single-handedly made this happen, and she was doing the wheeling and dealing behind the scenes to make this happen. All right, start calling the number. All right. Let me know when we're ready, Colin.
It's ready to go. You can call in either on the web at the web address or the phone number.
All right. Who's calling from? I think we have somebody from Jonathan Rosler. You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I just woke up about an hour ago. I guess I saw the report first from The Guardian. I wasn't sure if it was real because nobody had reported yet. But then, I saw your video. I saw Fox News, MSNBC. It's all out. And
I look like 3 times because a lot of times you have those like troll accounts that look like the official, but aren't. And I was like, would he really like tweet this out as a statement? So I was right there with you. I had to look 5 times.
So, my whole thing about this, my whole question is like, they've already, I guess, chosen Kamala to be the nominee with the Biden endorsement. But do you think doing that so quickly, right after he announced he's not running for another term, might have been a bit premature? You think that might cause some division amongst the party, or do you think there'll be the solidarity moment at Chicago next month?
I think that the top concern for Biden and Democrats, because this has been their top concern for the last 40 years, is corporate cash and donor money. And I think that the last 2-3 weeks, it's been reported that the money has dried up because the rich fucks that have corrupted our country had paused giving money to Biden. So I think the reason he endorsed Kamala Harris so quickly is to unleash the money, because Trump has caught up and even passed Biden in fundraising in the month of July and June. And all they care about is money, which is stupid. I mean, Hillary Clinton outraised and outspent Trump. Outraised and outspent Trump 2-1. She lost. So they could have more money. It doesn't matter if you have a bad candidate. But I think he endorsed Kamala, and I think they're all going to rally around Kamala so that the party is, quote, united, air quotes, which only means the donors are satisfied and the donors will start flooding in money. I'm sure Kamala Harris will be doing nonstop fundraising from Martha's Vineyard to Silicon Valley to Napa Valley. That's why I think he endorsed her so quickly, because I don't really think they want, a game of Survivor open. They're technically going to have an open convention, but as I've stated earlier in the live stream, I mean, the Democratic Party created this identity politics monster. You really think that they're going to, Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or any of these white people are going to stomach the heat they're going to get from black voters, particularly black women, black media, to try and stop not only the first woman president, but the first black woman president? I don't think they would do it. So that's why I think he endorsed her so quickly. Politically speaking, separating whether I think she's a good candidate, which honestly I don't. I think she's a better candidate than Biden, because I think my left pinky toe would be a better candidate than Biden. But I think it's a smart strategy for all the Democrats to rally around someone now, because time is short. I mean, the convention is in less than a month, and you got to get out there. Most people that are not like diehard into politics start paying attention after Labor Day to presidential politics. But I mean, you got to get a campaign up, like presumably she's just going to take over his campaign. But the campaign, it's not like a seamless transition. You have to basically change everything to a new candidate. Marketing, messaging, social media, fundraising, everything. So there's not a lot of time, and I think it's smart to unify around one person. Is this the person I would unify? No. To me, I'm not talking about policy. To me, the best candidate would be Bernie Sanders, but that's not going to happen. So the best corporate the best corporate candidate, I believe, would be Gavin Newsom. And the reason I believe that, I don't like his politics. He's done some good things in California, but he's just as corrupt as the rest of them. But I think to beat Trump, you need somebody who exudes as much machismo or more. You need somebody who could punch Trump in the face figuratively during debates. That's why I would have loved Jesse Ventura, third party in 2020, and Gavin Newsom.
I saw my writing in.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom, say what you want about him. He's not my cup of tea politically. He shamed Governor DeSantis and kicked his ass in that debate. And I think he would go ahead and do the same thing to Trump. But they're picking Harris for the reasons I outlined. I don't know if it will work, but they have to unite now because you can't keep the topic being Democratic Party dysfunction or who's going to be the candidate or who's going to be the vice president. You got to turn the topic on Trump. You got to not only on Trump, but you have to turn the topic to what is our platform? What's the major policies we're going to run on? Because Biden wasn't running on anything. And you have to turn it on Trump. So I think it's the best outcome they could expect. And I don't think anyone, maybe some lower level people will run at the convention, but I don't think any major people will.
I don't think she's going to pick Newsom because it's not going to win swing voters. Two people from California. It might either be the Kentucky guy, Andy Beshear, right? Or Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. I think they want to try to get swing voters on board.
It might also come down to which swing state do they think they have the best chance of winning, because Kentucky is not a swing state. That governor ain't going to help her win Kentucky, but North Carolina is. And former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper has been talked about a lot. He's about as moderate and corporate as they come, but Democrats seem to think North Carolina was in play. There's a very, very unpopular and extreme Republican running for governor there in North Carolina. So they could pick former Governor Roy Cooper, just based on if they think they have a better chance of winning North Carolina than, let's say, Pennsylvania, where you have Shapiro. I don't think they're going to pick Whitmer. I don't think they're bold enough to have two women. I think that's too much for most of America. I'm fine with it. If I liked the two women politically, I don't. J.B. Pritzker, I mean, they're going to win Illinois. I don't see it. So, I mean, it also could be a wild card. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a friend of mine who's in North Carolina says she's seen more Kennedy and Trump signs than she did Biden signs there. So I don't know if that really matters because it's one part of the city, one district. So I don't know if that really implies the whole state is like that.
I think this also changes that because I got to tell you, I think there was a good amount of people moving over to RFK simply because they could not vote for Joe Biden. Not because they loved RFK. I mean, there's some that are voted, like RFK for whatever reason, his, in my view, kookiness on vaccines and other shit. But I think there's a lot of people that were moving over to Kennedy just because his last name's Kennedy and they were done with Biden that might move back now to the Democratic candidate. There's a mountain of opposition research on RFK. It didn't get a lot of attention in recent weeks because of all this shit with Biden and the debate. I mean, he didn't deny sexually assaulting his nanny, I believe it was. And he said that there might be other women that come out. Trump might have gotten away with, 15 to 20 accusations, but Trump is different than most other people. I don't know if RFK could get away with more accusations. There's also a damning interview Brianna Joy Gray just did with somebody who used to be friends with RFK. And split with RFK after he suggested maybe we should just, get rid of them in terms of the Palestinians in Gaza. So I think more bad stuff's going to come out about RFK. And some of you might say, well, Jordan.
Yeah, he's probably.
Yeah, some of you might say, well, Jordan, isn't this an opportunity now with Biden dropping out to reignite the third party movement? Listen, it's not for me to tell you who to vote. I've covered Jill Stein's campaign. I've covered Cornel West's campaign, but I'm also not going to lie to you. I think it is a bad thing that they're both running. I think they kind of take from each other. Who has a better chance of getting more of the vote?
Stein?
What's that?
Kennedy and Stein take from each other, you said?
No, Stein and Cornel West. I think
I think they take De La Cruz too, yeah.
Yeah, I think they take from each other. I think Jill Stein's going to be on more ballots than Cornel West. I love Cornel West as a person, but it's hard for me to say seriously, hey, this should reignite the chances for a third party candidate to, get a record results and possibly closer to like what Ross Perot did back in the day, because I think Jill Stein and Cornel West are taking from each other, thus depressing both of their percentage chances. Now, if Cornel West dropped out, that could bode better for Jill Stein's chances, or vice versa. But I can't lie to you and say I think either one has a great chance right now of getting to 5%. I don't. So.
All right. Well, thanks, Jordan. I know you have other callers in the queue, but yeah, thank you. Thanks for your input. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. I got a call from Virginia. You're up.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've been watching Trump. I think Trump is okay. I think he's learned. He wants to negotiate with China. He's going to end the Ukraine war. You know that. The only problem that I have with him right now.
Why do I know he's going to end the Ukraine war? What makes you think that? When he was president, he helped arm Ukraine, which might have not been reported anywhere. He provided weapons to Ukraine.
But he was pushed into that, I believe, at that time.
Oh, please. But he wasn't pushed into giving Ukraine weapons. Go on.
Okay. Okay. But he says he can negotiate with China. He can negotiate with Russia. The only thing, of course, it's going to be really bad for Palestine. But who knows? Maybe he could even come around.
Well,
that. I mean,
I could only look at his record as 4 years as president, and he said a lot of things, and he said he was a great negotiator. But if you just look at the results, his renegotiated NAFTA was a shit deal. Yeah. If you actually look at it, it was a crummy new trade deal, and most of the unions will tell you that. He said he was going to end the Afghanistan war. He did not. You could say, well, Biden.
He tried. He was blocked on that. We
don't get participation trophies. He's the commander in chief. If he wanted to end it, he could have. He didn't. He also bombed Syria several times and almost started a war with Iran by taking out one of its top generals, Soleimani. He also tried to implement a coup in Venezuela to take out the Venezuelan president. And there were reports he wanted to bomb Mexico. So I got news for you. I don't think Trump is as anti-war as he's been successful in convincing people he is. If you just look at the results, his greatest accomplishment was a major tax cut, and most of it went to rich people. So you tell me, if he gets in there, what evidence do you have based on his record of what he'd be able to accomplish?
Well, as far as the record goes, he did back off attacking Iran. He's under a lot of pressure to attack Iran. He backed off of that. He did kill Soleimani, which I really thought was a big mistake. But
But what do you mean he backed off of Iran? He pulled us out of the Iran nuclear deal, which increased tensions with Iran.
They wanted the generals all wanted him to attack Iran, and he wouldn't do it.
Okay.
He backed off until at the last minute because he's all about business. I mean, he really doesn't like war. He really doesn't. There's no reason for anyone to like war in this day and age where everybody in the world is connected. I just don't understand how they can make the case for war with Russia and China. I mean, that's what the Democrats are doing. I mean, it's insane. But he wouldn't do that.
Well, I got news for you. Republicans have been jonesing for war with China just as much as Democrats. You might not hear it from Trump, but Republicans have been pounding their chest for war.
I know the Republicans are, but I just can't trust.
Jordan, you stop sharing your screen. Audio.
Oh, okay. 1 second. All right. Thanks for calling. Appreciate it. Bye. All right. Next one up. Calling from Corpus Christi.
That was I was on YouTube.
Hello.
Jordan, can you hear me?
I can.
Just on YouTube.
Jordan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, this is Envoy057. I want to talk about the possible VP candidate, and I really just want to get it clear that I'm going to be to the left of even you, Jordan. Sometimes I think you're not even harsh enough on the show you do, which you do pretty much good compared to everyone else. But let's just go with worst case scenario. Do you think the DNC would be stupid enough to put someone like Hillary Clinton as VP, which would just be pure jet gasoline for Trump fuel?
Yes, I do think they'd be stupid enough to do that, but I don't think they're going to. I don't think Hillary Clinton with her ego would serve as vice president. But I think the DNC would wrongly think it's a good idea. But go on.
Okay. And let's be honest, and I think you could agree with me, if somehow all the stars were connected and Bernie Sanders was our new candidate, you would know he probably did something to sell his soul, and he's already done stupid things like act like Joe Biden's his dear friend when he should be an enemy of the state through him, Bernie being a capitalist, or Biden should I say being a capitalist, and Bernie actually being a social liberal instead of an actual Marxist, like the Fox News will always paint them as.
Hey, I've been criticizing Bernie and his quote, my friend Joe shtick for the last 3 years. So maybe not fiercely enough for you, but I have not held back on Bernie. Frankly, I'd be fine with Bernie saying what he has to say if he chose to run to get the nomination, because I think he'd beat Trump, only if he then became president and said, fuck you, and, moved back on whatever promises he made to corporate Dems. But I don't think he's going to run. I really don't.
I don't think he's going to turn on the DNC if they give him even an inch of power. Quite frankly, we need to do the Trump strategy, punishment to what the corporate states of America has done to the American people on a Marxist platform, and do actually progressive things that actually would make us a better country and stop being war criminals for the military welfare state.
Hey, your lips to God's ears, but do you think Kamala Harris is going to pick an actual progressive as vice president and piss off the donors? If you do,
There's a reason people call her Pop Mall. There's no way I'm voting for her. I'm probably going to see who's better when it comes to Miss Stein and Dr. West. I apologize if Jill Stein is actually a doctor and I mispronounced it. But regardless, I'm not voting for the corporate DNC. I already had to vote for Hillary Clinton. God, I forbid that. And I had to vote for Genocide Joe, who needs to be rotting in a Hague. And you said something earlier about Kamala Harris has a vagina, so maybe she can talk about the abortion topic. I'm just saying, Liz Cheney has a vagina too, but she voted 95% of the Trump agenda, and the DNC might be stupid enough to make her the VP candidate.
Well, I really don't think it's debatable. Who do you think would make a better case on abortion, Biden or Kamala Harris? Putting aside politics, I think it's obvious who makes a better case. I don't like Kamala Harris, but Biden can't finish a sentence, much less make a case about abortion. I think that's true.
Kamala will just be a good corporate prostitute for the military welfare state and all the donors. She basically will be Joe Biden. Nothing will fundamentally change 2.0 for another 4 years and have nothing to run on. You did say earlier, which I do agree in, we do need to attack Trump for not only the problem that he's an obvious fascist and needs to be put to the ground, but we actually need to address what our platform should be for an actual stable country to get people to actually vote for them. Trying to have Kamala Harris is like trying skin cancer on the sun. I can't come up with anything creative right now.
But you know what? You just really put a really scary thought in my head, because I do think the DNC is stupid enough to pick Liz Cheney as a vice president. I do think they're stupid enough to do that. Oh God, forget it. Forget it.
Well, I'm going to let you do that. I'm done.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. Joining me now, Nadia, you're up.
Hello. I don't think Kamala's chances are that much higher than Biden. So I think people who are going to be on the wrong end of the theocratic fascist stick had better still be ready to run. It's not time to stop holding your breath yet.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I don't think Kamala as the candidate is a slam dunk. Democrats are going to win now. But I do think if you just look at all the polls, there's at least, particularly in the swing states, a 2 or 3% swing of people that simply were moving to Trump because they could not vote for Biden just based on his age and falling apart. And I do believe, based on the polls, 70% of Americans, 65% of Democrats saying Biden should step aside. I think that is a 2 to 3% swing to Harris. So I do believe that at least, I think Kamala Harris running at least makes it within the margin of error. I do not think it would be a Trump landslide. However, just because Kamala Harris can complete sentences doesn't mean she could persuade independents, because she's not a good politician. She flamed out in the 2020 primary. She's awkward. She seems most comfortable and animated talking about how she kept people in prison or put people in prison. So she's not a natural politician. And that's why I think it is important who she picks as vice president, because it will have to excite or at least convince independents and young people. But I do not think I don't think it's as bad. I don't think the polls are going to be as bad with her as they are right now with Biden. I do think you're going to see them shrink because a lot of the reason the polls were that wide and bad is because Biden was so bad. And I think there's at least a 2 or 3% swing to her. And also, although it is not like it was in the 2022 midterms in terms of, Democrats did so well in the 2022 midterms because the Roe v. Wade decision was so raw. And the polls showed the overturning of Roe v. Wade was the top issue in a lot of those swing states in 2022. Now we're 2 years after that. Will it be as big of an issue? I don't know, but I will tell you, I don't really think it was a smart thing for Trump to pick as his vice president somebody who is on record saying he's for a national abortion ban. Trump himself has not really given a straight answer whether he would sign a national abortion ban. And I do believe that will still animate voters, young voters, and particularly women, suburban women voters. Kamala Harris, she's not my cup of tea, but she does make a decent case on the abortion issue. And I do think it's still a major issue in most of the swing states. So will she win? I don't know. I really don't have a strong answer right now. Will she be a lot more competitive than Biden? I think she will.
Well, she at least doesn't have the albatrosses around her neck like the '94 crime bill, which I don't think anybody's going to get over anytime soon.
No, and I also think, honestly, Kamala Harris. I mean, Trump could go after her, but the main thing he could go after her is basically saying, cop Mala. He could try to, hit her on her record as Attorney General of California and keeping innocent people in prison and bragging about, the high conviction rate she had. I don't know how much that would work because it's Donald Trump speaking. But there's not much of a record for her to go after Kamala Harris. She didn't do anything as senator. I mean, Trump could try and just make Biden's record her record. But I don't really know if people are going to blame Kamala Harris necessarily for the inflation problem. I don't know if people are going to blame Kamala Harris as much as Biden for Israel-Gaza. It really depends on how does she sell herself? What policies does she pitch? Does she say, I'm going to end? I'm not going to continue to fund Israel? She's going to be careful not to want to piss off Biden and step too far away from Biden's policies. So there's a lot of unknowns.
And of course, the $2,000 that came back is $1,400.
Right. Exactly. And by the way, as I predicted, the Speaker of the House is already calling for Biden to resign. So I told you the Republicans are going to be pushing for Biden's resignation. So the Speaker of the House tweeted or said, if Joe Biden is not fit to run for president, he's not fit to serve as president, he must resign the office immediately. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's going to be the Republicans' fixation for the next couple weeks here. So thank you for calling. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. You too. Next one. Cassandra.
Hi, Jordan. Am I on? Can you hear me?
You are. I can.
All right. Well, you know what? I was working out in the garden and I came in for some water and I saw the news and on CNN and I couldn't believe it. My first reaction was...
You sound excited.
You know, I'm a little ambivalent about it. I don't think this is going to accomplish the results that the establishment Democrats want. Because if we look at Kamala's history of campaigning, recall that when she ran in 2020, she dropped out right before Iowa. She did not win not one delegate. And she spent $5 million. So unless she has grown in the office and is capable of running a campaign, that is one strike against her. The other, and I don't know why the media, why they're just not covering this properly, and that is this myth about she will have a strong endorsement from Black females. And if you look at the recent letter, there was a letter with 1,400 signatures of Black females that sent a letter to the DNC or some other place stating that they wanted Kamala to succeed Joe Biden if he should drop out. If you look through all of the signatures, they were boule Blacks, Blacks from academia, celebrities, elected leaders. These were not your typical working class Blacks. She does not have the support. One thing we can say about Trump, and we may not like it, his base is highly energized. After what the establishment has done, they have really fractured the party. And I don't know if Kamala is the right person to pull it back together. One last thing, I live in Wisconsin and we're a swing state. And I talk to people, and I'm talking about working class Blacks. And a lot of people, they don't know her record. They really, or they don't like her, and or something else that the party just doesn't seem to understand. It's not just a question of Biden's age; it's the policies that he either did or he did not do. So I'm not very optimistic that this is going to result in a win for the party. That's my point.
So I could just tell you, based on my travels over the last 8 years, particularly the campaigns I covered in 2016 and 2020, part of the most loyal voter for the Democratic Party is Black women and Black voters, period. But Black women first, followed by Black men. I'm not going to, I'm white. I'm not going to speak for Black people. And I don't think all Black people are just going to vote for her because she's Black, obviously. With that said,
this is true.
With that said, in terms of excitement, you're going from a guy who can't speak to possibly the first female president. That's not what I care about, but I'm just speaking about voters in general. And I do think the excitement that has been lacking is going to be infused with first female president. And we're skipping over the primary now. So she's basically going to be the nominee. I get what you're saying, that she flamed out in 2020. I think she was a terrible candidate. I don't think she's the strongest candidate now, but it's very different when you're comparing her running against, 15 people, and Bernie, who had the name recognition then, was strong, to her basically running against no one now. So I don't really know if you could use 2020 as an example, because right now, she doesn't need to excite the Democratic base. The Democratic base is going to vote for her. She needs to persuade and excite independent voters. She needs to persuade and excite suburban women who don't like Donald Trump, but were moving away from Joe Biden. And she needs to get back some of those young voters. She's not going to get back all those young voters. I don't think all young people, all Black people are going to come back just because she's Black. But I think there will be young voters, particularly females, that give the Democrats a second look now, based on first woman president and based on what she says about Israel, Gaza, and if she's proposing anything different. But I don't think it's a slam dunk. I agree with you. I don't feel optimistic she's going to beat Trump, but I do think it's going to be a lot closer. And I do think, listen, if you have everyone unite, you're also going to have celebrities come out for her, and, pep rallies, and the Katy Perrys of the world, and the Taylor Swifts of the world. It really comes down to, who does she pick for vice president? And does she offer one or two policies that are actually progressive that might excite young people? Whether she would actually follow through on them if elected is a different story, because I don't trust her and I don't trust Biden, obviously. They could say they're going to do things, but there's no record of them following through on progressive change. But if she picks somebody that's decent as vice president that can excite people, if she comes up with actual policies that might excite people, I think she's got a good chance, because we're forgetting, fuck the polls now, Donald Trump is unpopular. He's not popular. His approval rating sucks. People have concerns about him cognitively. So his polling is not so strong. He looks like he's strong because he was running against somebody who can't finish sentences. So she's Kamala Harris, or whomever is not running against a strong candidate. I think it looks like he's strong just because we've had somebody so weak. But Donald Trump lost in 2020. He honestly, I do think Americans have selective amnesia. I think the Democrats are going to hit him hard on abortion. I think they're going to hit him hard on January 6th. Whether that matters right now to independents, I don't know. What does matter is inflation and the economy. And I don't know if Kamala Harris could make a strong argument, because she's attached to the hip with Biden. And by the way, just so you know, as we speak, I mean, Harris, Elizabeth Warren just endorsed Kamala Harris. Hillary and Bill Clinton. A lot of Democrats right now are coming out to endorse Kamala Harris. So it looks like, yeah.
Now, one thing you have to remember, the rules of engagement are a lot tougher for Blacks than they are for whites. One reason why Obama was so successful was because he came across as intelligent and articulate. Kamala Harris cannot go into a press conference and answering questions, using a bunch of cut up phrases and words and sounding like she has absolutely no education about policies. And that is what oftentimes appears with her. She does not appear well prepared. Hopefully she will change, but if she continues that same strategy, we're done. So, but wonderful show, and thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. And Colin, I just put something else in the private chat. Let's show Speaker Pelosi, or former Speaker Pelosi's tweet, because she basically made this happen. She was pulling all the strings behind the scenes to get senators and congressmen to call for Biden to drop out. She tried to get Biden to drop out in a private meeting, but she tweeted, "Joe Biden is a patriotic American who has always put our country first. His legacy of vision, values, and leadership make him one of the most consequential presidents in American history. With love and gratitude to President Biden for always believing in the promise of America and giving people the opportunity to reach their fulfillment. God blessed America with Joe Biden's greatness and goodness." Oh boy, that's really nauseating. When you get a chance to load that clip I just sent, apparently the DNC does not know what to do right now with this breaking news. So let's play that when you get a chance, Colin.
The meeting underway of the Democratic National Committee senior leadership amid the unexpected news, at least unexpected to many of them. There was a meeting going on this afternoon that was designed to sort of put the finishing touches on the convention planning, which is 4 weeks from tomorrow. But they did not get enough heads up, and in this meeting weren't able to at least address this. But we know that the DNC chairman, Jamie Harrison, convened his top brass very quickly. And in that other meeting, when the word came, said he was quite emotional about it. They have put out a statement here just a moment ago, and let me read from this, because these are the people that are going to have to set out the rules of the road for the next few weeks. It says, in part, Democrats are prepared and united in our resolve to win in November. As we move forward to formally select our party's nominee, our values as Democrats remain the same. He says later, we have and will continue to make this case to the American people. The American people will hear from the Democratic Party on next steps in the path forward for the nomination process. In other words, they don't quite yet know what to do. While the president has endorsed the vice president, to Bob's point earlier, that many may be standing down, given that announcement, there's a few reasons for that. One, you only got 4 weeks left. And that's a gargantuan task to try to take on a sitting vice president who's sitting on roughly $200 million, give or take, maybe less than that now, because her name is on the campaign's official title. Technically, a handful of money would go to her. And so she could use that conceivably in these next 4 weeks should she be challenged. Keep an eye instead on the race for running mate. There are a handful of governors who I've learned this afternoon have been contacted. The one I know for certain, at least in a reportable way, is the New Jersey governor, Phil Murphy, who is among those fielding inquiries and entertaining them, in part reminding people that he has a foreign policy background, given he was once ambassador to Germany. Others that will be considered include the governors of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, potentially Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, and Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, is the kind of guy that if he really wanted to, could cut himself a $200 million check and mount a challenge himself. But the early word from his staff is they didn't know either. We do now know also, Nora, real quick, that he did inform at least a handful of people before this letter went out over social media. There was one senior party official who said he got a call from someone close to the president, made clear he was going to do this and intended to nominate or to endorse the vice president. So there was some early heads up given to a small handful of senior party leadership responsible for the order of things, raising money, operations, and whatnot. We know over at the White House, however, that many staffers learned about this the way the rest of the world did, over social media. Nora.
All right. Let's take another call here. Call from Grand Prairie, Texas.
Hey, Jordan, this is Emily. I love your show so much. Thank you
for
taking my call.
Thank you.
So I have like a tactical perspective on Harris. I think that this is the most strategic move that the DNC could do, because Trump and the GOP will have little to no time to just go full tilt, racist, sexist. She never bore her own children. And I just think this is the best move that the DNC can do to make her seem sympathetic. I think it's going to be good for independent voters. Like, what do you think?
I love you, but I disagree because the Republican Party doesn't need that much time to go racist and sexist. They need about 5 minutes. This is the Republican Party. They got Steve Bannon. They got Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, and the rest of them on the ready. So they will go full racist and sexist against her. With that said, I think her vice presidential choice is going to matter because racism and sexism do exist. If she picks somebody that makes swing voters in the Midwest comfortable, I think it's going to be a man for sure. And I think Trump's racism might appeal to his base, but it doesn't really appeal to independent voters. And you got to remember.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Yes, yes.
What I'm saying, yeah.
I think they are going to go racist and sexist, but I think it is going to backfire. And you got to remember, there's that 10% voter that has swung back and forth. There's 10% of Trump voters. There's 10% of Obama voters that swung to Trump in 2016. And about that same amount, 10%, swung from Trump to Biden. So there is kind of that 8 to 10% that has gone both ways. And part of the reason they swung away from Trump was the divisiveness, the insanity with COVID. So I think they could go overboard with particularly the racism.
Okay. Do you remember in 2020, she was campaigning in Texas and they were trying to run her bus off of the highway.
Yes.
Do you remember this at all?
I do.
Okay. Okay. I just think that I just think they're going to go so far that it's going to turn potential independents off. Like how far they're going to go on like the hate. That I don't know. But I could be wrong. I think there's another element,
and we're already seeing as I'm live, the Republicans are calling for Biden to resign and drop out. I think the Republicans, I don't think it's going to work, but I do think you might see this messaging. I think they're going to actually try to say Kamala Harris has been the president this whole time, and try and basically make it like, hey, that inflation that's still killing you. The wars all over the place, even though Republicans love war, they just pretend they don't. I think they're going to say Kamala Harris has really been making the decisions. Kamala Harris has been pulling the strings. It's not a bad argument to make because clearly Joe Biden, does not look like he's up more than maybe 10, 12 hours a day. But I think they're going to try and just put a rope around her connected to Biden and make it seem like she's been pulling the shots. I don't really know if that's going to be, it'll excite the Republican base. I don't know if that's going to work, but I do think that's what you're going to see. They're going to try and stain all of Biden's unpopular stuff, from inflation to, the border with Harris. So really, it's up to Harris. I mean, she could have all the donor money in the world. She could have every last celebrity and, liberal titan come out. But if she gives speeches that aren't exciting and inspiring, which in 2020, she wasn't exciting many people, then she's going to get she's going to go down. She needs to, I think, have a personality transplant in a very quick period because she's an awkward speaker. And I think she comes out a little too professorial at times.
Yeah. And I think that the VP should be the senator in Arizona. I always forget his name, but I think that's like the safest bet.
Yeah. Colin, take over for a second. I just got to get something.
I don't think Jordan realizes I can't be heard on Colin. One sec. Okay. So I won't take any calls for a sec, but yeah, so this is very actually, I have a couple clips here. Sorry, I'm just an avatar right now. This is a very impromptu stream, so the camera's not set up. But let's take a look at.
I'm back.
Oh, never mind.
All right.
Don't
Are
get
you
to see
still
that
there?
now.
Is
They,
my caller
they
from
left.
Texas? Okay. Next one up. Anthony.
Oh, it's me. Hey, how you doing, Jordan?
Hey there. Good.
Hi, Jordan. How are you?
I'm good.
So I wanted to first start off by thanking you because you and Status Coup, I think, are the only ones that are sticking by people that are really poor and in terrible situations, heartbreaking situations like East Palestine and Flint. I don't know of any other news organization that has your tenacity, and it's direly needed in this day and age.
Thank you.
We're facing a situation that I think is unprecedented. I don't even think the Gilded Age had as many problems as we have today. Basic people being poisoned in their own homes and before they even have a start at life. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And that's why I wanted to tell you that.
That is, by the way, that is a good segue. I have to do it. My book on Flint will be out in 2 weeks. My first book, I hope you get it. It's called We the Poisoned. It'll be in bookstores August 6th. And it's about the Flint water cover-up. And it took me quite some time to get this published. So I think it's important that we stay on stories like Flint and show people that an American city that was poisoned is still consuming toxic water 10 years later. And the cover-up of who poisoned them and why is still happening. Go on.
So about a year ago,
yes to the person asking, there will be an audio version. There will be an audio version. Go ahead.
About a year ago, I had the privilege to go to Alaska, and as I was going through it, I had to drive along the interstate, and I was going through some sections, and I saw homeless encampments all around the interstate. And as I went through portions of Seattle, I saw people tranked out of their minds, and I didn't even know that's what it was at first. I live in South Florida. I have homeless encampments all around, but I don't see that here. But let me tell you what I do see. I see people on crystal meth. I see people in lines to get food that are miles long, whether they're Harry Chapman donation centers or if they're just donation centers for your local churches. And here's why I think none of this matters. We're going to meet the new boss, and the new boss is going to be the same as the old boss.
Yep.
And the new boss is not going to offer the people anything to vote for. And so basically you're going to have a situation where, yes, we have a person that can talk, but they're not worth listening to. And if you're not going to offer me anything to vote for, why should I vote for you? And I'm a lifetime Democrat, and I'm going to tell you right now, Jordan, there isn't a single way I was voting for Joe Biden, period. I believe that killing people is wrong. I believe that using our offensive weaponry in wars that don't involve us is wrong. I believe that if we have money to fund foreign wars, we sure as hell should have money to help our own people who can't find homes. I mean, Biden's statement bragged about the strength of his economy, but I got to be honest with you, I don't see it. What I
the
see
economy
people
sucks.
is people giving up.
Yeah.
I see people giving up. I see people dying deaths of despair. I hear people being absolutely callous because that's the way to survive. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I go to the gas stations and I see people needing money for gas. I mean, I see desperation everywhere I look and every single time I care to look. And I just don't see that this lady is going to offer us anything. It's like two cheeks of the same backside, and they're defecating all over the people they claim they're helping. This is the party that helps people? Nah, hasn't been the party that helps people in a long, long time. And that's why I don't think it matters. That's why they're facing Trump, because right now people want to throw a bomb again, back in the system that failed them again. I see Trump's base as being hugely energized, but not us, because they've given us no reason to vote for him.
Well, listen, if
So
you've been
thank you very
if you've been watching us for the last few years, I mean, I haven't been saying I don't tell people not to vote,
Jordan,
but
I got to be honest with you. I've been watching you since TYT.
God bless you. I appreciate the loyalty. I've been saying for the last 2 years, listen, I'm not telling people not to vote, but to me, the real action is outside of the electoral system. I've been focused on the union resurgence. Not that we're back to, the heydays, but at least there's a pulse again with the UAW and other organizing going on. I've been focused on the worker strikes. I've been focused on tenants unions. I've been focused on community after community having their water poisoned and all those cover-ups. I haven't been focused as much on.
Isn't it interesting, speaking on the UAW, that they're trying to go after Sean Fain?
Oh, of course they are.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
But to me, the choice of Trump versus Harris is really whether you want to get shot in the head or drink poison. You're going to die. It's just a matter of how quickly.
That's why, Jordan, for me, the only sane move was to try to go for a third party.
Yeah.
And again, I know that means my vote's essentially wasted, but if we could send a message that, you know what, it doesn't work anymore, to just say, hey, vote for me, I'm better than the other guy. If they at least get that message and start losing their cushy jobs over in Washington, D.C., that's a good thing, I think.
Absolutely.
But that's just me.
Absolutely. Thanks, man, for calling. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right. I'm going to take one or two more because my daughter's about to wake up from her nap. You are up in North Carolina. Jacob.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Hey there.
Just started listening. I'm a huge fan of Secular Talk with Kyle Kalinske, but I want to hear from you as well, so I'm going to start listening more. I had kind of a two-part question. First is, Trump won in 2016 as a lifelong self-proclaimed Democrat who ultimately ran on a Republican ticket. He beat out opponents who had deep pockets, the Chris Christie's and the Ted Cruz's and all of that, and then ultimately beat Hillary, had a whole party behind her. Why couldn't he do that again? I mean, seems like him is rubbing his racing after all.
He can. Like I said, I mean, I don't think this is a slam dunk that Harris is going to beat him. I think she's got a lot of Hillary Clinton in her, to be honest with you. Trump's campaign, to me, seems a lot stronger this time than it did in 2020. The RNC, I mean, I think there was a lot of despicable shit going on, but you can't say it wasn't well organized, and you can't say it wasn't, energized. It certainly was. And the Republican base is fucking breathing fire right now. So it's going to be tough to beat Trump. With that said, I really don't think he helped himself picking J.D. Vance. Abortion is still a major issue for a lot of voters, not just women. And J.D. Vance is on record saying he's for a national abortion ban. Trump has been smart not to answer that and to kind of dodge, but Vance is on record, and they are going to hang Trump with that. And that does excite voters, not because they're excited about Kamala, but that's a single issue voter issue. And that's why Democrats did a lot better than was expected in the midterms. Will they, it's obviously not as raw as 2022 because it's 2 years since that Supreme Court decision. But I mean, the Supreme Court's been doing such crazy shit, still, that I still think abortion is a significant issue. The problem is a lot of people held their nose in 2020 for Joe Biden, not because they wanted Joe Biden, but they wanted to get rid of Trump because of the message of get rid of fascism, return to normalcy. Well, a lot of people think Joe Biden supporting with an open check the genocide in Gaza is fascism. A lot of people think we were told to hold our nose, but, we don't have normalcy. We've had chaos, the war in Ukraine, Gaza. My grocery bill is $100 more than it was 4 years ago, even though that's not completely Biden's fault. And I don't know how Harris breaks away from that unpopularity because she can't criticize Biden. That's not going to go over well. But what is she going to propose that's different? That's going to tell people, this is what I was criticizing Biden for, besides the fact that he couldn't finish a sentence. He wasn't running on anything. He just started proposing things. He just started proposing lefty policies like, getting rid of medical debt and things I don't think he would actually do. But he just started within the last 2 weeks of actually proposing things he would do. Harris needs, I think, to propose one or two bold things that will excite people. I don't know what those things are, and I don't trust that she would actually follow through with them, but she needs to at least rhetorically do what Bernie did, which is very clear, like Medicare for all. What are those policies that she would propose that would excite people? I don't know. And I don't know if the donors are going to allow it, because the donors run the country, as I always say. The donors are going to give money to her, but I don't think she's going to want to get so out of line with what the donors would be comfortable with. So to answer your question, Trump can run a similar playbook as he did in 2016. I think the border issue is as strong for him now than it was in 2016. I think that's what helped him win election in 2016, in addition to Hillary being a terrible candidate. I really think it matters a lot who Kamala Harris picks as her vice president, because I think independent voters are going to be looking at the package as much as Harris, who's the vice president.
That's actually into my second question. Actually, how do you feel about like a Pete Buttigieg as a running mate? I mean, he's
Are you trying to make me shoot myself on a Sunday? Are you trying to make me shoot myself on a Sunday? Fuck that. No.
Yeah. No.
I have reported on the ground. I have reported on the ground in South Bend. And you want another Obama with a different color? That's Pete Buttigieg.
Gotcha. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. All right, I'll take one more. Then I got to go take care of my daughter. Tony.
Hello, Jordan.
Hey there.
Hey, I just finished the Flint book yesterday.
Well, tell the audience watching, how was the book and should they buy it?
Yes, they should buy it. They should buy it now.
That's all I needed to hear.
This is a book that had me emotional at many times, and it was a perfect reminder of why communism would be a good thing in this country, because that way things like water would be free and publicly owned, which they obviously should be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for reading it, and thank you for the recommendation. He pre-ordered it. That's why he got it early. So you could still pre-order the book. Yeah. It's about 2 weeks, and I'll be doing a book event on the day it launches in Flint. So that's August 6th. I'll be at Flint at Comma's bookstore, Comma bookstore. At 7 o'clock, we'll be doing a book event in Flint, August 6th, trying to finalize another event for that week. And we'll have another event in D.C. beginning of September. So I'll have more on that. But what do you think about Biden dropping out and all this?
Well, I'm really excited about this because it makes this whole thing exciting when I thought it was going to be boring. And I just want to ask you, how does an open convention work exactly? Does that actually include the voters voting?
No. So open convention, anyone really could put in the party can put themselves forth as a candidate. And you would have the delegates that have already been elected choosing. So, I mean, bottom line, the most delegates are Biden delegates because he won the primary, even though that was a bullshit primary. And since Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris, I mean, I think it's an open shut case that Biden's delegates are going to vote for Harris. And you already have, as I'm live, I mean, Elizabeth Warren, Hillary and Bill Clinton, Emily's list. I'm sure others I'm missing are already endorsing Harris. So I think the fact that Biden endorsed her, sitting senators are endorsing her. I mean, you might have one or two people run against her, but I don't think it's going to be anyone of prominence. I don't think, like, for example, Gavin Newsom is going to run against her at a convention, or Whitmer, or Pritzker, or Governor Josh Shapiro. It would be exciting if Bernie did, but I don't even think Bernie is going to. So I think it's going to be an open convention, open in air quotes. This is a coronation. Let's put it that way. It is a coronation, it looks like, for Harris. So.
I just think whoever it is, they need to be able to explain why Trump and J.D. Vance would be so horrible, because that's really all a candidate needs to do.
Yeah. I mean, bottom line, Trump is beatable. It's not easy, and the Republican base is excited, but he's not popular among independents. Certainly not popular among young people. I think you could get some of those Latino voters that have been gravitating to Trump back over. I think you could get some of the young people, not all of the young people, but some of the young people. And it really is not. It's not an election for America. It's an election in 7 states. I mean, that's the truth. And really, it could be decided by 1 to 2 percentage points in some of those states. So it's going to be on the margins. And I think that if she can have a personality transplant very quickly and give a good speech and excite people, but more importantly, who she picks as vice president matters. And I don't want to hear she can't run a campaign just based on if you start to see her shtick is all about how dangerous Trump is and Trump and democracy and fascism, then she's running Hillary Clinton's campaign again, and they're going to lose. But if she runs,
that's what I expect from her, honestly.
So do I. But if she runs with 1 or 2 actual bold like let's say she runs, we're going to wipe out debt, medical debt. And if she runs on, we are going to raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour, because I think $15 is not enough. And she says, and if we get a Democratic Senate and a House, we are going to push it through to hell, disregarding any parliamentarian. We guarantee you we're going to raise the minimum wage. I think she could win. Will she do that? I don't think she's going to do that, because I don't think the donors want her to do that. So that's what it comes down to.
One more thing, Jordan.
Sure.
Do you have any plans or thoughts for an East Palestine book?
Oh boy, I'm still trying to get attention on the Flint book. It's been in my mind, but I with East Palestine, I need to definitely go back there and dig a little more, because honestly, I mean, you read the book. I hope it shows 8 years of hard work. Like, it takes a lot of reporting, more than one trip to a place like East Palestine to really get to the bottom of what happened here, and digging and building sources. So if I were to do a book on East Palestine, well, I don't want to just do a book. I want to reveal things and reveal bombshells, So it would take me going back to East Palestine more. And to be honest with you, I'm a human. My wife isn't thrilled with me going to East Palestine. I got sick there last time I was there. So if I go back to East Palestine, I'm going to be wearing some type of respirator, because it's a chemical petri dish, and I don't want to, shorten my lifespan, just like the residents are unfortunately being. So to answer your question, yes, that's on my mind. I also have an idea for a book exposing the media, which
great.
So that is, but first I got to make this one successful. So thank you for being part of that by buying it. And I hope as many people as possible, can buy it, because we have to break the idea. A lot of publishers, for example, a lot of book publishers and a lot of news editors, they don't continue staying on stories like Flint because they think people don't care. They think it's not sexy or it won't rate. So if I could get a book to do really well, I don't know if it will be a bestseller, but if I could get a book on Flint to do really well, then we could show, hey, media shouldn't abandon these stories. Look how many people bought this book. Look how much buzz is around this book about the Flint water cover-up. It makes it easier to get publishers to say yes to a book about East Palestine, or name your environmental cover-up, or just non-sexy story that the media abandoned. So I'm not trying to sell this book to be rich. I'm trying to sell this book because I want to make clear that these stories matter and people care about these stories, even 10 years later. And to the person who said, I'm happy to say there will be an audio version. After begging my publisher for the last 6 months, there will be an audio version. I think whoever is narrating it is just finishing it. I wanted to narrate it, but I wasn't going to fight them. I was just happy that
I would like that.
Yeah. Best place to buy Jordan's book. It should be available in Barnes & Noble, Borders, independent bookstores.
Thriftbooks.com.
Yeah. And you could pre-order it now. The link to pre-order the book is in the description under this video. If you pre-order it now, I think you could still get it before August 6th, which is when it will be available in bookstores. But it should be available in most bookstores across the country. And definitely you could order on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, etc. and I believe it will be on Audible as well. So for audio listeners, it'll be on audio. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Colin, for helping last minute. It's not often that we have a president drop out of the race for re-election, so obviously we're going to have a lot more. We're going to have a lot more on this throughout the week, and obviously, now it looks like the party is coming, rallying around Kamala Harris. So we will see what developments happen. Don't go anywhere. Things are getting interesting. Things are getting interesting. We'll be back here live tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern. Thank you for watching. And if you missed it, check out my interview I did with an East Palestine resident on J.D. Vance. He's a fraud, and he abandoned the people of East Palestine. He is an Ohio senator, and Norfolk Southern chemically nuked East Palestine while he was senator. He showed up for about 5 minutes and has abandoned them since. So definitely check out that interview I did. I also did an interview with Nick Estes, Native American author and media host, on Leonard Peltier, who was just denied parole again. The media doesn't cover that either. He's been in prison for nearly 50 years. So a lot of important stories we're doing here and interviews. You could go watch those. John was live the other day from another Free Palestine ceasefire event. So please, please, please watch our other stuff and subscribe. We're almost at 200. We're almost at 195,000 subscribers. So once we get to 195,000 subscribers, then the countdown is really on to 200,000. Right now, we are about 400 subscribers away from 195,000. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.